Good evening. I'm Emily, the JetSetting Fashionista. I'm so excited for tonight's Instagram Live with winemaker Zak Miller of Domaine Carneros. We have a spectacular lineup of wines, so those of you who love sparkling wines, you will be in heaven. And anybody new to watching my Instagram Lives, I wanted to let you know I've done a bunch of these. One of my friends, Diane Mina, with Diane's Bloody Mary, is actually on. We did one with her way back in the beginning during COVID. So visit my YouTube channel to see all of my Instagram Lives. That is the JetSetting Fashionista. Or visit my Instagram TV channel. So anyway, I'm going to invite Zak to tune in and join in on the fun. Okay, he's popping in. Wow, I see a lot of familiar faces. Hey, Zak.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Excellent.
Sorry,
Couldn't
I'm
be
a
better.
minute or two late. Sometimes when everyone's getting on, it just like spins and doesn't let you go live. I guess 5 o'clock is literally the hot hour.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, very good.
Great.
Little technical difficulties, but I think we're good.
Yeah. I'm just going to sit up a little bit more so we can see you. Well, good. I'm so excited. So I know you and I got together. What month was that? April, May?
Yeah, it was a few months ago.
Yeah, I think it was April. We tasted
yeah.
a lot of wines. They're all spectacular. You're a busy guy over there. So, yeah, I mean, why don't we kick it off with, shall we sip a little something as we talk, history of Domaine Carneros and go from there?
Yeah. Why don't we get some rosé going? That's always a good party starter. And
That is a great idea. I've got all my bottles right here.
okay.
So we are starting with the 2017 Brut Rosé, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and look at this beautiful color. Wow.
Yeah. So I'll get into the wines in a second and obviously talk about this wine and the color, but maybe a little history on Domaine Carneros for starters.
Yes. Let's start there.
Yeah, we were started in 1987 by Champagne Taittinger. They wanted, of the Champagne Taittinger house, they wanted to establish a location in the New World, and so they scouted this location here where we are in Carneros in southern Napa, southern Sonoma, and then that's where we got our start. Now we have the vineyards around the chateau. Here, about 100 acres, but we have six vineyards in Napa and Sonoma, all in Carneros. Carneros is a unique AVA in that it doesn't adhere to the political boundaries, so it's in Napa and Carneros. It's more on the microclimate of the area.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's a very fun fact. I love to impress people with that knowledge when we're talking about Carneros. People are like, it's in Napa and Sonoma? I don't get it. I'm like, don't worry about it, but just remember that fact.
Yeah, it's its own entity. If you're in Carneros, you can be Napa Carneros or Sonoma Carneros. We choose to just be Carneros and tap into both. And so we have 6 vineyards total, which is 400 acres of estate fruit that we farm ourselves. And that's really, kind of the gold standard to have the control of the vineyards from planting, from selecting the clone that's going in, the root stock, the orientation, and then obviously the farming as well, the pruning and the farming throughout the year. And then,
so that's like a winemaker's dream to be able to, have that much control over the grapes. And obviously you work with, your viticulture team, and that's pretty spectacular. I don't think I realized that.
Yes, it is. It's really the gold standard. It's a winemaker's dream. That's what you want, to have the highest control over everything from beginning to end every single year.
Is it okay if I smell and sip this while you're talking about history? I just can't have 3 glasses of wine poured in front of me and not dive into one.
Let's dive into it, and we can keep on discussing the area as we go through. But
great.
2017 Rosé smells beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice,
very like light and floral, and but has that freshness and acidity that I feel like you want in a rosé.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a couple ways to make a rosé, and probably the most common is you can take your Brut and add still Pinot Noir, and you get a rosé, and that's really the most common way, and it's not really wrong. But it's not our way of doing it. we feel like the Pinot Noir that is added to it, that's still Pinot Noir, that's fermented on the skins. The fermentation on the skins, you extract the tannins from the skins, you extract some of the great phenolics, and that tends to overwhelm the delicate aromatics and delicate nature of sparkling wine. So,
Okay.
Our goal is to stay true to the nature of sparkling wine. And so to do this, we leave some of the juice in contact with the skins for a couple of days without a fermentation, just a cold soak, if you will. And that extracts some color without extracting the tannins and the phenolics. And
I mean, this color is just spectacular. I'm curious if anybody else has this rosé open at home. Hopefully some of you are following along, unless maybe you drank it a little early for National Rosé Day on the 12th. I know I drank a lot of rosé on the 12th. And that's actually what sort of sparked, we knew that we wanted to be sure to do a rosé today, Zach, to celebrate that,
exactly.
Rosé month. And your rosé is just such a beautiful representation. I've had this at a friend of mine is a wine club member, so whenever she has holiday parties, I've had this at Easter, and it's such a special treat.
Nice. Yeah, well, I got my rosé month shirt on.
You what?
I'm wearing my Rosé month shirt.
I know. You can't really see it. I'm wearing a pink dress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I've been wearing it all month. Just kidding.
Oh, yeah? Very festive, Zach. I'm just going to grab the bottles and...
yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
The color is something that we work really hard on. The goal is to, make a pale salmon color. And, rosé, although delicious, can fall under the misnomer of being super sweet. And, I think the redder, the more Kool-Aid the color, the more perception of sweetness. Ours is a true Brut.
Okay.
And it's intended to be serious. And so we keep that color where we think it more, it's a more serious color as well.
So for people that don't know what a Brut means, can you explain what sugar level is in that, please?
Yeah, so a Brut is a designation of sugar level, which is the driest, but the designation is anything under 15 grams per liter, which is a pretty broad window. And so a 15 gram per liter would technically be a Brut, and that's fairly sweet for today's market. Champagnes have traditionally been in that range, in the 12 plus, and the world palate is kind of moving down. And
yeah, it's funny. I went to Champagne twice, and on my second trip, I was like, can I try the zero dosage? You just, especially if you're drinking 3 or 4 days of sparkling wine or champagne, by the end, you're like, it's just hard to take in all that sweetness. And this is not sweet. I mean, I love this. It's refreshing. It has, a touch of sugar, but not overpowering. Yeah,
exactly. Our Bruts run at about 9 grams per liter, which we feel is the proper balance. Again, going back to the estate fruit, we have beautiful fruit. But there's searing acidity in the base wine. We're picking earlier in the season, more in like August. We want to preserve that acid, and it's an acid sugar balance. And
so you said this is made of Pinot Noir. When do you pick the Pinot Noir versus the Chardonnay in the Brut?
Well, the Pinot Noir would come first in sparkling wine, which is kind of a flip from still wine. But typically the Pinot Noir ripens first. Most rosés are Pinot Noir. Ours does have Chardonnay. This is 59% Pinot Noir, 41% Chardonnay. Because it's still a sparkling wine, we still want to give it that structure that the Chardonnay provides, but enough Pinot Noir, to add the color. And so it's predominantly Pinot Noir, but it's still got that backbone of Chardonnay.
Yeah, well, I love that 51-49. It's just a little bit more Pinot than the Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Great. So speaking of Chardonnay, shall we move on to the Bruts?
Yes, of course. Let's do the 2016 Brut next.
Okay.
And
there you go. Those of you at home, this is the label. I love the blue. It's just very elegant and fresh and, stands out.
Yeah. This is our estate Brut. Again, entirely off our estate, which is a common theme here.
Yeah, I mean, so all of your wines are estate fruit, right? So everything would be an estate.
Yes. Yeah, we are 100% estate.
Okay.
this point. We've been working really hard to get there, and so we're very proud to finally get there.
And you've been there a while. Can you remind or tell the audience how many years?
Yeah, I have 13. This will be my 14th vintage coming up here in about 6 weeks. So, you know, really looking forward to it. Harvest is a fun time of year. It's hectic, but it's kind of what we do. So it's always exciting.
I might have to invite myself to your harvest if you like bloggers getting in your way, because I love to go to harvest, and I think that's, you know, the best way to learn. And I've never been to a sparkling harvest. I mean, I guess it's similar, but you know, what you do with the grapes after, I've never seen.
Okay, well, I mean, really, they go straight to press, and it's fairly boring, still wine, because they go straight to press, and we press the juice to a tank.
Well, it's not boring. It's boring when it's your job, but when you don't get to see it all the time, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
So we're starting with the 16. It smells incredible.
16.
Getting, you know.
So one thing I should mention at this point is all of our vintage dated wines, we vintage date with in adherence with the French vintage labeling law, which in France, in order to put a vintage, you know, they don't have vintage years every year. So when they have a vintage year, which coincidentally is a warmer year, you know, we're both kind of in the same zone, you know, the temperature zone, but they're in the cooler side of it, and we're on the warmer side. In Champagne, when they get a warmer season, that's when they get their vintage. And so in order to vintage date it, they have a good year, and they have to age it for a minimum of 3 years. Yeah,
or non-vintage is 15 months.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm memorizing all these facts for my WSET test, so I'm so glad I know the 3 years and the 15 months. If you ask me like Italy or another country, it'll be poof. But
Not
Champagne,
so
I gotta know that one.
Yeah, so since we're sitting in the warm part, we're vintage every year, you know, so we vintage date, but as an added kind of statement of quality, which we don't have to do here, we do at least 36 months in the bottle.
And, oh, wow. So speaking of quality, we did have a good question that I would love you to answer from a friend and Instagrammer, David, who asked if you can bruise the sparkling wine by popping the cork.
Can you bruise sparkling wine by popping?
Yeah, if you don't open it properly, can you damage the wine?
I don't know about damage the wine, but you'll lose some of the wine. So, you know, I don't recommend it. You know, hey, if you win the World Series, by all means, go for it. But
yeah, well, I actually just filmed before we started a video that I'm going to post on my reel of how to open a bottle of sparkling wine. I did it a couple months ago, and it got a lot of views, which means people obviously want to learn. So I'm going to do it again with a Domaine Carneros bottle. So you guys look out for that coming soon. And yeah, I mean, obviously part of the fun is the pop, but as you're, you know, learning to be a som and in school for that stuff, you learn like you actually don't want it to pop. You know, when you're at a restaurant and they open it and you don't even hear it, it's like so seamless. It's very impressive. And you're like, oh, I didn't even notice the champagne was opened. Right. And that's what we want.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this 16. So what was this vintage like, and how would you describe this wine versus the 14 that we'll have next?
Well, that's easiest to just put them side by side for the comparison. But you know, the 16 was a, you know, that was a year we were kind of coming out of the drought. We were pretty good, you know. 15 was kind of that last drought year. 16 was, we were starting to get some rain. The harvests, you know, bud break was a little bit later. Harvest started on August 8th, which was, you know, creeping back.
I can't believe you have that date memorized.
Yeah, we know when we start. It's a pretty big deal.
Okay.
You know, standard rule of thumb is we would start middle of August, you know, so call it the 15th. And but over the years, through a variety of reasons, harvests have been getting much earlier, you know.
Global warming, I would imagine.
That's one of them. You know, the drought conditions is another one. When we have a drought here in during the winter, we don't get the same amount of rain. Yeah. Temperatures are obviously warming up.
And then you also said that the style is getting a little bit less less sweet and lower sugar. So you obviously need to pick earlier if you want lower sugar, correct?
Well, the sugar is done, not necessarily, because
Okay.
the base wine is where it is, and your final
Yep.
sugar is added at disgorging. So that's a total, that's removed from harvest. That's another step. That's kind of the finishing touch that we put on it. You know, when we disgorge the bottle and add the final dosage, you know, we'll taste every cuvee, every vintage, and decide the perfect dosage for that. For that wine, so that it can come out. But yeah, we were getting back to normal, I think, in 16. Hopes were high. You know, the vintage was nice.
I mean, this is beautiful. I love, you know, the brioche notes. There's a little bit of like doughiness, but yet still that like acidity and that punch. I tried the 14, and I'll just do a side by side. Hopefully, everybody at home has both of these open like we do. Yeah.
You get some of that you know, the stone fruit, say in the rosé, is more of a peach. You get more of a pear. And this one, a little bit of green apple.
The 14's definitely more, you know, like acidic and not, I don't want to say not as sweet, but the 16's a little bit lighter and more of that, you know, brioche mallow stuff.
Yeah, I think the you know, you develop some more flavors when you get into the LD. So you know, just to which is industry acronym for late disgorged. I should probably say that. So we have the 14 estate Brut, and then we have the 2016, which is a late disgorged. So what that is
I think it's the opposite. The 14's late disgorged, right?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Unless 14, we have the opposite versions, that would be funny.
Yeah, that wouldn't really be possible.
Okay. So yeah, what does the late disgorged mean for those that don't know?
So what we take is the exacts that basically in 2 years, the 16 will be a late disgorged. So that we save a portion of the Brut and we just leave it and age it for an additional 2 years. So instead of getting the minimum of 3 years, it's going to get 5 years plus, and so it just continues to develop. The pear comes through. I think you get into more of a baked pear. You know, you get more of those the depth of flavor in the longer that it's aged on the lees, and so
late disgorged.
Yeah.
So how do you guys decide which vintages to do a late disgorged with?
We do it every year. We just save some back, and not very much. The late disgorged is a very limited release. You know, just for people that want to have fun. You know, it's a nice comparative. I like showing them side by side because it really shows what 2 more years of aging does.
Yeah. So it would be fun to taste like a late disgorged of the 16, and then the non one 2 years earlier, right? Or 2 years older.
Yeah. I mean,
like what the vintage would taste like
every year
used in the late disgorged.
Yeah. Every year we you know, we have our regular bottle and we have our late disgorged, and they just kind of move together. So when the 16 is a late disgorged, the 18 will be the standard Brut.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And then you guys also do a non-vintage as well, correct?
The only non-vintage we have is our distributed rosé.
Okay.
Yeah, the thought on that one is that it's a younger wine. You know, it's a rosé. We want to get it out quickly. Yeah. So, you know, it's about 20 months, 20 to 24 months. Because it doesn't get the 36 months, we don't put a vintage date on it. But that would be the rosé that's national.
So you cannot get a non-vintage Brut. The Bruts are all vintage.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Correct.
Yeah, so you guys really are, you know, similar model to, you know, your brother or sister over at Tattinger. You know, you're doing the exact same aging requirements and the same vintage, except that you do a vintage every year, which, as we said, they don't do in Champagne.
Right.
So I think it would be interesting. What?
Said we have that luxury.
Yeah, well, lucky you guys are working really hard if you're doing it every year. Those guys, you know, get to take a year off or something. So can we explain the difference? Because I correct people all the time when they call sparkling wine champagne or champagne sparkling wine. Can you explain what the difference is, please, Zach?
Sometimes I correct and sometimes I just let it go because it gets a little, but yeah, champagne is just, everyone knows bubbles of champagne. And so it's just kind of like Kleenex or Vaseline, right? It's like a name that just becomes, the brand that becomes what it's known as.
Yep.
But champagne is bubbly made in the Champagne region. And, the original, place for bubbles.
Yes.
And, they've worked hard to protect it over the years. And, we're owned by a champagne company, Tatage, so we respect their wishes. The other side of that is we aren't trying to make champagne, we're trying to make a sparkling wine from Carneros. We're very much in tune with that. We're a sense of place here. So we call ours Carneros Sparkling Wine because we are here in Carneros, representing Carneros and making what Carneros gives us. So anything outside of champagne is technically not champagne, although some people do use that nomenclature.
Yeah, some people do use that term pretty loosely.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to just clarify and educate, because if people don't know any different, I mean, of course, I'm gonna call it champagne if I didn't know either.
Yeah. Yeah, and some countries have come up with their own. You have cava in Spain, and
I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, cava does not even come close to champagne, but I do love Franciacorta Sparkling in Italy.
Yeah.
That is some delicious stuff, and they're working really hard to produce at the same caliber as champagne or comparable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. This is like sparkling wine 101. Thank you, Zach. So what else shall we share about Domaine Carneros? I know I was there, and it was slowly as things were reopening. You guys were crowded, I mean, in a good way. You have so much space. You have the outdoor patios. It's really spectacular. Like, I almost feel like I'm at you're at this destination sparkling wine house, and you truly are just swept away from like everyday life.
Yeah, I mean, there were maybe a couple good things that came out of the pandemic, and many not so good things. But but seriously, we were restricted here and inside, and even it made us expand our outside. We have a lot of terrace space and outdoor space, and what we were able to do is expand some of those seatings. So we can't seat the same number of people, but we can seat more outside than we used to and still adhere to social distancing. And now, things are opening up more and people are ready to come out. So,
oh my goodness. I mean, everybody I know that's trying to visit wineries are so busy. I mean, I'm sure you guys are slammed because everybody we're just so happy to be able to go back and do that.
Right.
And so guys, if you want to visit Domaine Carneros, I would make an appointment now for like late June. Well, this is late June, July or August. I'm making appointments for August just to get on people's calendars.
Yes.
I mean, I had a fabulous visit. They also have some like little food pairings. I think I had, the cheese plate when I was there with you. I don't know if you're going to get to see Zach. He's probably going to be getting busy in harvest, but
that's true. Yeah. Yeah, and definitely make a reservation. We're booked up, and we have to do reservation only so we can control the flow. There's cheese plates. We have charcuterie board, even caviar, and so there's lots of nibbles.
A lot of goodies. Yeah. So I did what did you call like the premier flight?
The premier flight isn't it the premium flight?
Oh, maybe the premium flight. I forgot exactly, but I know that it was like the premium wines, and it was spectacular. So that's the one I recommend, guys. Obviously, it's the JSF. I always want to do whatever's most luxurious, and that was stunning. And obviously, I sat outside, and we had beautiful views of Carneros. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those spots that if you haven't been, you need to go, and then you'll probably be going back quite a bit.
Grand tasting, there it is.
Grand tasting. Thank you, Napa Phoebe. Oh, by the way, I wanted to tell you, did you see we have people tuning in from Argentina and from Scotland?
I saw the Argentina. I didn't see
the Scotland was a little bit earlier. I wanted to call it out. I love it when we have international people joining in on these things. It's so cool. And, even as like the world is reopening, I think people still want to hear from people like you, Zach. So even though, they can come visit the winery, they might not get to talk to you or listen to you for a half an hour. So thank you for, tuning in and letting us share your story.
Yes, of course. It was great talking to you. Thanks for the opportunity. And yeah, we'll see you back here. Hope to see
I sure
everybody.
hope so. What?
That I hope to see everybody here
Yeah.
at Chateau.
Before we roll off, Zach, would you mind if I took a photo? This
No,
will be
go ahead.
for the Instagram TV one. Okay, cheese. Okay, one more. I wish I could take a photo and hold a glass. I'm not that talented. Cheese. Okay, well, guys, if you missed the beginning of this and you want to watch it, like I said, this will be on my YouTube channel, The JetSetting Fashionista, and also on my IGTV channel. And Zach, any last words, or are you ready to rock and roll?
Enjoy your summer. Every day's better with a glass of bubbly. Cheers.
Yeah. And cheers. And make sure you're celebrating National Rosé Month. I highly recommend this beautiful Brut Rosé.
Thanks so much.
Okay, have a great night. Thanks again, Zach.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.